Hey book lovers, Kaylee here and welcome back to the Enchanted Library. And today's video is one that I'm kind of bringing over from my Instagram page. And it's an idea that I had a little while ago that I wanted to do all year as a picture set, but now I think I'm going to be doing it as a monthly thing on here because it might work out a little bit better. So with that being said, let's get into the video. This idea came to me, like I said, a little while ago, and it's essentially utilizing what I have dubbed the Silly Holidays calendar as a means of recommending books. Essentially, I want to find books that suit a theme based around that day. So, because we are going into March, I figured I would start off with a few days from March to recommend books about. Okay, so the first day of March that I have chosen is March 1st, and that is Plan a Solo Vacation Day. So the book that I decided to recommend for this is actually Virgin River by Robin Carr. This book came out a number of years ago, but obviously with the resurgence of it because of Netflix, I feel like it is a very good one to recommend on here. It is a contemporary book and not usually a genre that I read, but I have been enjoying this one. Mel, who is our main character, is going to Virgin River to get away from the city to be working having a working vacation for a year. March 4th is March 4th and Do Something Day, and for this recommendation I decided on The Bookshop on the Corner by Jenny Colgan. This is another contemporary book. It's more about finding yourself than anything else, and I really appreciated that about this book. I also love that our main character has the gumption to go forth and do something about her life when her job is no longer viable. So I just love her gumption. I love that she was able to throw caution into the wind and do something that she actually felt like she could do, and even at times felt like she couldn't do, but that didn't really stop her. And I just really appreciated her character and everything that she went through and everything that she put forth into making herself the happiest version of herself. So I had to use this one as a recommendation for March the 4th. March 7th is Alexander Graham Bell Day, and for this one I had to do something with phones, so I definitely chose I've Got Your Number by Sophie Kinsella. This is one of my favorite Sophie Kinsella books, and I love to reread it at least once a year, but alas, it is currently in storage, so I'm not able to do that this year. However, I'm still going to recommend this because it has a wonderful dynamic between our two lead characters and their cell phones. Our main character loses her wedding ring, doesn't have a phone, needs to find one, sees one in the trash, grabs it, gives the manager of the hotel that she was having brunch at a copy of the phone number from the phone that she stole. Turns out that phone is owned by this big corporation, and it is one of their employees' phones who just sort of ditched it and left. So the boss is trying to reach his secretary and ends up getting our main character. And throughout that, there's a bunch of hijinks that ensues. Their banter is amazing, the text communication is amazing. Sophie Kinsella always has like a really good business plot going on in her books too, so that's always a good time. Definitely would recommend this one. March 14th is Pi Day, so I needed to find a very sciencey, mathematic-y kind of a book to choose, and I ended up going with one of my most recent reads, which is A Lady's Formula for Love by Elizabeth Everett, and this book follows, well, it's basically a Victorian romance book, and we have a widow who is the head of this women's club, but it's actually a front to allow women to use their brains to uncover things and perform experiments and just have a good time with the sciences. She ends up having, well, her stepson ends up hiring a bodyguard for her because she's doing work for the government on the down low, but people are finding out and they're trying to kind of get rid of her, so the bodyguard is there to protect her. And it's like a bodyguard romance. It's super fun. There's a bit of science in it, and it's just so clear how much all of these characters love their like genre of science. Is that subsect of science? I'm so in the literary mindset. But it's just, it was such a fun story. I really enjoyed it and would recommend it for sure. March 18th is Awkward Moments Day, and for this day I'm going to recommend Would Like to Meet by Rachel Winters. This is a book that I read early last year, I believe, and it is all about this girl who has to help a screenwriter come up with a rom-com plot. So she has taken the onus on herself to perform all of the timeless meet cutes that happen in movie history and rom-com history, and a ton of awkward moments ensues. It is a contemporary, there is some romance going on with it, just beautiful relationships. There's also a father-daughter duo in here that is a familial relationship that you don't really see, and because she is deaf, so there's signing that goes on in it, and it's just so much fun. But so many awkward moments, particularly at a coffee shop, and this just screamed Awkward Moments Day to me. March 19th is Let's Laugh Day. Now for this one, I was thinking of a book that made me laugh out loud, or a book where a bunch of the characters laugh together. I don't really read a lot of comedy books, so this one was a little bit difficult for me, but I ended up choosing one that made me giggle to myself quite frequently. And that is The Tourist Attraction by Sarah Morgenthaler. So it's book one of the Moose Springs, Alaska series. I just had so much fun with this book. I loved our main characters. They just made me laugh so much. Plus you've got Ulysses the Moose. He made me laugh so much. It was just an all-around great time. But for this one, if you haven't heard of it, it is following the townsfolk of Moose Springs, Alaska, and how they are not wanting to be overrun by big corporations, so they're trying to stay on the down low and not have a bunch of tourists come in, but it is inevitable. But there is like a restaurant that is called the Tourist Trap, and our main female lead ends up meeting our main male lead there, and just greatness ensues. All of these books, greatness ensues. I'm just gonna say that. But definitely would recommend that series if you have not picked it up yet, because it seems like I feel like everybody has read it. March 20th is World Storytelling Day, and for this one I ended up picking a nonfiction, and it is also a recent read, but that is Extraordinary Canadians by Peter Mansbridge. Now this book is basically a bunch of interviews with everyday Canadians who have made the world a better place. It was so amazing being able to read through their stories. Some of them made me feel super hopeful, some of them just ripped my heart out with their story because it was just so heartfelt and so trying at times, but overall just full of amazing stories from amazing Canadians. And if you want something to make you feel super proud to be Canadian, or to learn more about the everyday person in Canada, I would definitely recommend this book. I flew through it because you're really just going through, each chapter is basically an interview with a person, so you can pick it up and put it down whenever you feel like it. Just pick it up, read 10 pages about this one person, put it down, flip through, skip people. I read them all. They're all amazing. Highly recommend. And March 25th is Tolkien Day, and I feel like this is an easy one. Obviously read Lord of the Rings, or The Hobbit, or whatever. It's amazing. Also, I guess you could put in here too, Becoming Mrs. Lewis, and I actually did not anticipate recommending this one, but I just remembered because he is kind of a sub-character in it, and I think that that is really cool. I was not expecting it when I read that book, but yeah, if you want to see a little bit more of how Tolkien was when he was writing these books, it's a fun little nod. You don't get a lot of it, but he is in there, and it's kind of interesting to see. March 29th is Smoke and Mirrors Day. This one was a tough one because I was putting a lot of onus on myself to choose a mystery, magical kind of a book, but nothing really jumped out at me as much as The Lady Rogue by Jen Bennett, which I was not expecting because I did enjoy reading it, but I feel like there are other books that could have jumped to my mind quicker, but this is the one that I'm going with. This was more pitched as kind of like a female Indiana Jones, but I can see that for sure, but it's not quite female Indiana Jones. But it is in there for sure. But we have a girl whose father goes missing on an expedition, and she has always been sort of prevented from going because he doesn't want her to get in danger. He doesn't want her to be a part of that world, but she is inevitably drawn to it. And her old friend Huck end up sort of coming back together because they were split up for very understandable reasons. But they end up being brought back together to find her dad. And in it you have a lot of red herrings, a lot of mystery, and some unexpected magic, which was really interesting to me. So they need to find Vlad the Impaler's ring, and that just sets off an entire adventure. And I had a lot of fun reading it, and this is the first one, like I said, that stuck out to me for recommendation for this day. And lastly, for March 30th, we have Take a Walk in the Park Day. And for this one, I have The Waking Lands by Callie Bates. It is the first book in a trilogy. And for this one, I chose it because I could pick like a Regency romance where they promenade through the park. But for this one, our main character has nature magic. And it's just so cool how it works. I absolutely love it. There is a lot of politics. It is definitely a fantasy book, but it's not a big fantasy book. Like, it is one that you could read in one sitting if you so choose, or just quickly over a couple of days. But this one has definitely stuck in my brain because there is an amazing cliffhanger ending that goes on it, and there's a ton of rebellion, and it's just overall a very intriguing story. I have book 2, which I have been putting off reading because I still want to stay in the world, but if I read book 2, then book 3 and the final book is just around the corner, so I'm hesitant, but I still definitely recommend it, and also the cover is gorgeous. But there are my book recommendations based on the March Silly Holiday calendar. Be sure to like this video if this is a series that you would be interested in me continuing, because I would love to do so, and subscribe to my channel for more content and hit that bell notification icon so then that way you are aware anytime I post new videos. And until next time, keep reading.